Good morning. Glad to be here. Glad to see so much diversity in the attendance, the different types of organizations and all the different places from across the state. Deescalation. So part of my 30 years in the fire service, 15 years of that was with the Homewood Tactical Team. I was a SWAT medic for 15 years and trained extensively with U.S. Navy SEALs and Army Rangers in hostage rescue. We trained constantly on how to take back schools and hospitals from active shooters, which we'll get into more of that after lunch. But when you're serving warrants, you get tossed into a lot of escalation and de-escalation. And I've seen a lot of those situations, and I've seen them be successful, and I've seen them not be successful, where it goes from de-escalation to escalation, right? So if you look up the definition of de-escalation on the internet, or look for resources for de-escalation, you're going to be overwhelmed with the amount of information because there are thousands of ways to approach de-escalation. So what I wanted to model today's talk about was I want to get through all that fluff and get to the bottom and give you tangible stuff that you can use when you get home today. Like if you get back home and walk into a violent situation, I want you to think, what was I told this morning to do or not to do to escalate it or de-escalate it, okay? So get your pen and paper ready. We're going to go through a lot of information. And out of all those methods that you find on the internet, they all will work only if you know how to apply them. So the problem when it comes to de-escalation is being able to apply. I can give you 14 tips on how to de-escalate, but if you can't maintain your composure and keep your emotions out of it and stay calm and not get super involved, you're not going to be able to apply or remember those 14 things. And then there's some things that you need to really be hyper aware of. If you're in a stressful, potentially violent situation and you want to de-escalate it, you need to know that there's a very, very thin line between I'm in control and I no longer have control. And then you run the risk of being injured or killed. So you need to get out, okay? You need to let authorities take over. When do I call 911? For example, if the person you're trying to de-escalate all of a sudden brandishes a weapon, comes out with a butcher knife, that situation just changed, right? Now you're in a run, hide, fight situation, okay? So if I trained everybody in this room on the same standards on de-escalation, some of you are going to excel and some of you are not going to do very well. Because a large part of de-escalation has to do with gut instinct. And that's just not something you can teach, okay? It comes from, you're either born with it or you get it from experience, right? So the first thing you should think of when you have a potentially violent person or somebody you've got to deal with is who is the most experienced in the room to deal with this and go get them, okay? Because you've never handled one, but you got somebody down the hall that's done 30. You want that person that's done 30 in there. Because every time you go through a de-escalation, you learn what to do and what not to do. You know, you walk out going, God, I should have said this, I should have said that, or I shouldn't have said this, or I shouldn't have said that, right? And sometimes they go great, sometimes they don't go so well. I'll give you an example. I remember 15 years ago, Homewood Police called me as a fire lieutenant over to the station, and they had a girl who was freaking out and they couldn't do anything with her because she thought aliens were coming to get her and take her away on a UFO. And they couldn't manage her, so they called the medics in. So walk in, I had a medic with me that was really, really good at de-escalation. We got her calmed down, got her talking normal, got some personal information out of her. Things were going well. And then I had a rookie on the truck who, for whatever reason, walked in and sat down and said, now tell me again, you really thought those aliens were coming to get you? And she exploded. So I snatched him by the collar, yanked him out of the room, and told him to go get his you-know-what on the truck, right? And stay out of the building. So we were heading in the right direction, and the wrong comment sent her, and we had to start all over. And now we're not only starting all over, we're starting all over with a worse patient than we had to start with, right? Because now she's offended, and she's insulted, and so it was just a disaster, okay? And something that people don't realize about de-escalation is you don't have to wait to use the things we're going to go over. You don't have to wait to use those when you're in that situation. You can use your de-escalation techniques in everyday life with your family, with your kids, with your friends. You know, some of you may remember when you were in college, you were in a bar and you get into it with your best friend, you know. I mean, that was a situation where you could have used a de-escalation technique, you know. So you don't have to wait until you're in the middle of battle to use tactics. So overall, de-escalation is about, it comes down to support. The goal should let the person know you're there to support them and not suppress them, right? De-escalation for suppression is a whole different ballgame. What we deal with in the drug and alcohol recovery ministry is we want to support that person and let them know that they're human, that they're loved, that we care about them, and we need them to come in our direction so that we can care for them, okay? Whatever they're dealing with. So there are certain things, warning signs of violence. I'm going to give you a list of warning signs, things that should tip you off that you're fixing to walk into a de-escalation situation. Number one is threats, okay? And there's three types of threats. There's a direct threat, like I'm going to cut your throat, okay? There's a veiled threat, just try me and see what happens, you know? And then there's a conditional threat. If you make me go back down there to that dorm room, you know, you're going to have to drag me down there or we're going to fight, okay? If your resident or program participant boast of prior violence, you know, if they're telling you how many people they've kicked their butt before, then they're flexing, okay? So pick up on flexing, okay? Confused thinking. And you're just about always going to see confused thinking when you're in a de-escalation or potentially violent situation because their adrenaline's pumping, their heart rate's up, okay? And we'll go over some of those signs in a minute. You can tell by their body language when that's happening. But you got to remember, when you're if they're in a fight or flight situation and they think they're fixing to get into it with you, they're only hearing like every third or fourth word you say. So you got to be calm and you got to be clear and you got to be concise to get that message across. An increase in pitch when speaking. If you hear their speech elevate, that means they're losing control, okay? Their throat is tightening. That means they have adrenaline releasing and they're fixing to fight or flight, okay? Repetitive word use, parroting, is called parroting or echoing. They're saying the same thing over and over. Or they go childlike and they start repeating what you're saying. They start mimicking you or parroting you. Forced or strained speech. A nervous laugh. You know what I mean? Everybody knows what that nervous laugh is, right? Like, it just doesn't fit, right? The laugh is not right for the situation. Laughing is a way for the body to shed emotions, but in the proper context, right? When a person speaks to others about someone as if they're not there, right? Like, if I look at her, they're in there with me, and I go, well, you tell Jamie that me and him are fixing to go round and round. So if they speak about a third person that's there, okay, yelling or screaming, of course, nonstop profanity, we've all heard that. Slurred speech. Slurred speech can be from, in our world, they've got into something, right? Or it could just be from adrenaline, okay? Or an overwhelming rush of emotions. And the most bizarre one is talking of hurting animals. Anybody ever had somebody that says, well, I've killed a bunch of chickens, or I shoot coyotes for fun, or, they just talk about hurting or harming animals, or I kicked a dog yesterday, or I don't know why that's a thing, why they go there. It's almost like it's a internal message that I'm capable of hurting something, and it might be you next. Okay? So those are the verbal warning signs of potential violence. Now, the nonverbal signs of potential or impending violence. Personal space violation. And this one I cannot stand. Okay, this is one of my pet peeves. Do not get in my space. If you and I are trying to resolve a conflict, you're not going to get further than arm's length from me. Okay, I mean, you're not getting any closer. You're not getting in my 3-foot circle. Okay, and you don't need to let them in there either, because your reaction time is not near as fast as their action time. They can have a hold of you by the hair, by the neck, by a tie, by your wrist, and now you're in a fight. Okay, distance is your friend. Okay, standing toe to toe. If they step up toe to toe, they're ready. Okay, in your face or nose to nose. That's a nonverbal sign of impending violence. Finger pointing. I'm sure we've all had fingers pointed at us in these situations. Making fist while they're walking around talking to you. They're clenched, You can see it in their jaw sometimes, but usually they're fist. And this one, staring through you. Okay? Staring through you can mean two things. They're either trying to make a plan on how they're going to get through you, hurt you, and get out of this, or they could be thinking about, they might be right. Maybe I need to reconsider my actions. But in my 30 years of experience, it was the other way. When somebody is staring through you, the plan is almost always an escape route. I'm fixing to leave this room and they're not stopping me. It's that blank stare that's like, it's almost an evil stare, if you follow me, Yeah. It's like you can see through their soul. There's just like the lights are on, but nobody's home, right? Face flushing. And I've noticed some people flush here, right? They get flushed, here. Heavy breathing. If you can hear their breathing, they're panting. Adrenaline's up, epinephrine's up, heart rate's up. Flaring nostrils, which means they got their mouth closed, and now they're nose breathing. Okay. Person refuses any eye contact. If you cannot get them to look at you, that means they're not truly in tune with you, that you don't have them on board, you don't have them in the palm of your hand where you want them. Okay? And this one will not happen to me right here. Someone blocks my egress. Do not let them outmaneuver you and block your egress. Because you can do it as casually as they can do it, okay? If you're arguing with them and they maneuver around and get themselves between you and the door and their fists are clenched, fight's coming, okay? Exit, okay. Yeah, an exit door. And I don't like the way some of our offices at our organization are set up, because when people enter, they've already got you pinned. Your office should be set up to where your back's to the door. That's not a friendly way to set up an office, but it is the safer way to set up an office. If you don't have a door behind you to get out, as soon as they step in your doorway to your office to address you, you're trapped. Okay? So ideally, you'd want them to come in and stand around in front of your desk where you can scoot out that way. Okay? If they start getting violent or ugly, but don't let them block your egress. All right, let's talk about the do's and don'ts. These are the verbal, this is for you. They just gave you all the signs in verbal and nonverbal, and now you have verbal do's and verbal don'ts. Okay? Let's go down to the do list. Do use their name. There's something about a person when they hear their name that lets them know that they're an individual and that you're connecting with them and that you really care, okay? If you call them a you or hey and all that kind of stuff, remember we're trying to support, we're trying to treat them like humans, and so the first thing we need to do is address them by their name. It's okay to ask, may I help you? How can I help you? Word it ever how you want, but let them know that your goal is to support them. How may I help you? How can I help you work through this? Speak slowly, because remember, if they're ramped up, they're not going to hear you if you're speaking fast. Use restatement for clarification. Okay? If they tell you something, repeat it back to them. Restate what they said. Okay, let me make sure I understand what you're asking. You're not going to stay, you're telling me that you're not going to stay in that room with those 3 guys anymore. Okay? And make sure, and then that kind of lets them know you are listening. That's huge if they know you're listening. Okay? Ask to take notes. Before you pull out a pen and piece of paper, ask if it's okay. Because to somebody in that situation, when they see you taking notes, you're documenting. Yeah. And nobody wants to be documented, right? Nobody wants you to be writing down what I say, okay? I don't know why the pen and paper is so offensive, but it is, okay? It'd be the same thing if I picked up and said, I'm recording you right now. You know, your behavior, they're not going to like that either, okay? Paraphrase. It's okay to paraphrase. Use the words what and we instead of me and I. Like, get it off yourself and let them know that there's a team. It's not just you, you know. It's like we want to help you. We love you. We care for you. What can we do for you? You know, how can we help you? Now, allow time for reflection. This is called awkward silence. I love awkward silence. It does not bother me one bit because I love to watch their body language during awkward silence to see if they're escalating or de-escalating. Because sometimes they're actually thinking, you know, he might be right. Give them options, clear options. You don't have to offer them the world, but give them some options. And always ask for their idea or solution to those options. Like, look, I'm going to give you 2 options. If those won't work, you tell me how you think we can resolve this. Or if you were in my shoes, how would you resolve this? You know? I use that a lot just in terminations. When I terminate an employee at the foundry, I bring them in. I'm like, you tell me if you're the COO sitting here looking at this record, this paper I'm looking at, tell me what you would do. How would you handle it? What kind of discipline would you dish out if you were me? Here's your handbook, by the way, that you signed. You know, use simple words. Don't get too complicated or overeducated, because remember, they're only picking up certain words, and I promise you they're going to drop the big words, right? Maintain 65% eye contact. Now, why 65%? Why do you not want to look at them the whole time? Now you're doing what you don't want them to do, is stare through them, right? So it's okay to look away or look down at your notes or look at the wall or look at, 65% eye contact, okay? That way they don't feel like you're trying to threaten or intimidate them through eye contact. All right, that's your verbal do's, okay? The verbal don'ts. Now, as we go through these, I want you to think about I know most of you in here have been in these situations. As we go down this list, think of these verbal don'ts that you did that now you wish you didn't, or you wouldn't have done. Don't fake attention. Don't fake attention. Like, don't let them be sitting there talking or standing there talking and you just act like you're listening, but you're really wondering what that text was that just come through on your phone that you caught out of your vision over here, right? Like, you saw something come in. If you ever do this, you just lost them, okay? Because they're like, he is not listening to me. Don't roll your eyes. Okay? Which is what my rookie did in that UFO situation. And then opened his mouth. Don't make false promises. Never, ever tell them something you cannot live up to or hold up to. Or don't promise them something that you think somebody else is going to do. Okay? Until you have their backing, right? Because then you'll get yourself in a fix. Don't use jargon. Use straight, clean language. Easy to understand. No street term. I know all the people in our program, they use all kind of, they got all the latest lingo right from the streets, right? That we sometimes don't even know what it is or what it means. So don't try to use their jargon. Be professional and use English. Common English, let me put it that way. Don't agree with them. Don't take their side. You always stay neutral. Always don't say, I understand, I'm with you, and yes, this is a horrible organization. Never let them pull you in. We really do fail a lot here, but so I hear you. That is not a discussion at that time. Don't let them know that you make mistakes. And don't cut them off. Be respectful. It's a human thing to do. If they're talking to you, don't cut them off. Because if you're like me, I'm really bad about it because, ADD, and it's like my thought process is already, I hear their answer that they're dragging out, so I'm already on to my next thing, but I can't stop them or cut them off because it's insulting, and they know it. Don't get in a power struggle, okay? Because remember this, no matter what, you are ultimately in control. You have the authority. They're going to challenge you on that. They're going to make you think you don't, but don't forget you do, okay? You got a whole staff behind you, an organization behind you, you got law enforcement behind you. You have the authority. Don't get in a power struggle and let them take that away. You know what I'm talking about, these situations where they threaten, well, my family's going to do this, or I have an attorney, or, don't fall into any of that, They're idle threats. Don't raise your voice. You are the professional. You're the one trying to de-escalate. You don't have to show out. Okay? Don't raise your voice. Don't fail to document. Document. Because what's the old saying? If you don't document, it didn't happen. Yeah. Don't lose your temper. This is where I was talking about earlier. Don't get emotionally attached or involved. Once you get emotionally attached or involved, it's you're losing. You're losing. Okay. And this could be somebody that you love. This could be a family member, or it could be for us, it could be a program participant that's been there 9 months, and we love them. We know them well. Never meet a de-escalation situation, a person that's angry, never meet them one-on-one. You need too deep leadership, right? Especially if your office is not being recorded, never meet with them one-on-one, because then if they walk out of that office and accuse you of doing something, it's your word against theirs, and now they do have a chance of beating you in court, right? Always have another witness. Too deep leadership. Don't allow more than one person to talk. When you have your second leader in there or your second staff member, already have it predetermined who's going to take lead on this de-escalation. The other one's there just to either take notes or watch and be a witness. But 2 people badgering one person, that's what they're going to see, is badgering, right? They're going to feel like they're teamed up on. I get that all the time just in employee hearings. If I walk in from HR and then their supervisor walks in, they're like, well, I know I'm in trouble now. Why I don't get to have somebody else in here? I hear that all the time. Don't argue. And whatever you do, never, ever, ever say, you just need to calm down. You might as well be You might as well take a bucket of gasoline and throw it on a brush fire. Don't ever. I don't know what it is. You know. I know. As a married man, I can't look at my wife and say, "You just need to calm down." But apparently, that works the same. That works the same when it comes to de-escalation, right? So. Let's see. I told you about a failed de-escalation. Let me tell you about a successful one. I walked up to the front door of a house one night. This guy was a known mental health case. He was a former lawyer in Birmingham. Called 911 all the time. Went up there, check on him. He usually had his meds out of whack, So I approached the door this one night. He comes to the door in his pajamas, and he's holding a 12-inch butcher knife in his right hand when he opened the door. So I stop from me to Judd from the front door, and we start de-escalation, right? Because I don't know what his intent is. I'm not getting closer than 12 feet. And I was like, Mr. So-and-so, you call us up here? He goes, yeah, I need y'all to come here and check me out. I'm not doing well. And I said, well, we've got a problem, and it's that knife in your right hand. I said, now I'm willing to come in and check on you because we do care about you, but I can't, that knife is a risk to my guys. And I said, so I'll make a deal with you. I said, if you'll lay the knife down and back up 6 feet, then we'll come in. And he went in that awkward silence, and I just let him stand there. I gave him the boundaries, I gave him the goals, and he just stood there and stared at the front door steps, and then he just quietly laid the knife down, and he walked back in the living room. I walked through, kicked the knife off in the bushes, and so it was a successful de-escalation of what, I don't know what his intent was. I don't know if he's going to stab the first person through the door, but we're not going to take a chance, right? So that's a successful de-escalation. It's just calm, respectful, cared about him, and just changed his thought process, whatever it was. Got it? Any questions? You got this? You got de-escalation?
I have a question. You were talking about personal space. So if someone comes in and they're like violating your space, do you relinquish that space? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I do. For me, it depends on how violent they are. Like if they come in a demeanor where I feel like I can communicate with them, like they're wanting to open and communicate, I don't mind closing that distance a little bit. But the more aggressive they get, the more distance I'm going to put with an escape route. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
You're talking about don't give up ground.
Yeah, I'm saying, do you like kind of make a stand to say that, hey, you're not?
If you want to make your stand your boundary, you have every right to say, I need you to sit over there in that chair. Like don't let them push you out of your office.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? If they're pushing you out of your office, you don't have control anymore. Okay? So at some point, now that becomes a suppression de-escalation and not a supportive, right? Because they are using their body language to threaten you. Remember getting in your 3-foot circle or trying to push you out? If they're pushing you out of your office, no, that's not happening. That's a call to 911. Get them arrested. Get them out of here. They're not going to flex on my staff. Okay? Don't let them push your staff around. Okay? And to me, that's being a bully. And I think they're trying to establish dominance. And if you let them do that, then I don't know if you'll ever gain control of them. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions?
When dealing with a mentally ill person, like how long would you let this conversation go on? Would you wait until it's totally de-escalated, or sometimes do you walk away and give them, the reflection time?
Yes, look, you have to go into all of these knowing that sometimes there's not a win. It may not be a loss, but there may not be a win. We all know that with mental health cases, right? You can sit there and talk 6 hours to a mental health case and never gain any ground, okay? it's a personal call. It's a personal call. Me personally, I'm not sitting there talking 6 hours with a mental health case. As soon as I determine what I've got, and hopefully that's in like 15, 20 minutes, then we're gonna table this. We're gonna get you in front of somebody else that's more qualified than me, or somebody else that you're willing to talk to, or somebody that's more certified than me. I'm sure you have other things to do than sit 6 hours with one person, right? I know we do, and or I do. But it's not that I don't want to listen, but when you know you're on this merry-go-round and you figured out pretty quick that it's mental health and it's not just I'm upset over I didn't get my way, or it's not drugs, or it's that's a good question though. Yeah, it's a personal call. At what point do you relinquish and realize I'm not winning this? And you got to be humble enough to know that you're not going to win them all. If you got some type of ego where you're like, oh, I'm controlling this person? I mean, they're not getting out of here till I win this? Good luck. Good luck.
Similar question. When somebody is delusional and they really believe what they're saying is a fact, how do you break through that wall to even start to help?
Well, when you're just, all I can speak to is this de-escalation process. When it gets to that deeper, I need somebody here more experienced in psychological counseling to understand why they're doing that. But in the de-escalation process, what they see is what they see, and you believe them, right? Does that make sense? Like, what I'm saying is, if you're sitting there going, let's say, my girl, for example, that we had seeing aliens. If I'd have told her they're not real, we would have never got her to go to the hospital, ever. She can say whatever she wants. You just got to find words to be supportive, like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm sorry, I understand you're seeing that, and maybe that's why you need to talk to somebody. But I'm never going to tell her that what she's seeing is not real. I don't think that's going to work in your favor. It's okay. I mean, because you're not going to heal those delusions in a de-escalation environment. That may take years of therapy, but your job is just to get her calm enough and confident enough that you're on her side to get her into that therapy that she needs or he needs. They can say and see whatever they want, What they can't see is that you're working from a 10,000 foot level you got a plan. You got the plan. And they're living in the moment. Do you have a question?
Yes, sir. So that said, you said earlier not to take their side, to stay neutral. So you see the benefits of being on their level and empathizing.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't have to believe. I'm going to stay neutral because I'm not going to believe in what you see. I mean, I don't have to believe it, but I'm not going to tell you that you're not seeing it, because they probably are.
Yes.
I'm dealing with that right now with my own mom. My mom was just diagnosed with dementia a couple of weeks ago, and she's seeing people in the house. I'm like, you're freaking me out. I mean, I don't, because she's like, they're right there, and I'm like, no, they're not. But I told her, I said, look, Mom, I understand you're seeing things. I know you are. I'm not saying you're a liar. I just can't see it. So with enough of that, I got her to go get some help, right? And so, it's just I'm going to stay neutral, but let them see what they want to see. As long as it doesn't become a threat.
You mentioned 3 types of threats at the beginning, a direct threat.
Yes.
And then what were the other 2?
A veiled threat, and then a conditional threat. Direct threat, a veiled threat, and a conditional threat.
And the veiled threat, what was your example?
It's like I'm going to threaten you, but I'm not telling you I'm threatening you. It's kind of like in a passive aggressive way. Well, the last time I was with my counselor and he said that, I hurt him. That's a veiled threat to you.
If I wasn't a Christian.
Yeah, that's a veiled threat. Yep. Yeah, a conditional threat is if you do this, then I'm going to hurt you. Like if you make me go back down there, or if you make me stay here one more day, or if you tell me, we had this one yesterday. If you tell me I'm dismissed from this program, I'm fixing to hurt somebody. That's a conditional threat, right? So, yeah. So just be aware of those threats. So my question to you now is, do you feel like before you came in here today, do you feel like now you have a little bit more weaponry, ammunition to deal with your de-escalations or your stressful, potential violent people? That's what's important. That's what we want you to leave here with, is something that you can tangibly use, okay? I know it's a lot, but maybe out of all that stuff, you can pick out some nuggets that you can put in your pocket that will really, really help you to keep you from getting hurt, to keep you from your staff getting hurt. There is no sense in anybody getting hurt, getting injured, or worse, by somebody you're trying to help, okay, when you're the one in control, you know. And after lunch, we're going to talk about active intruder, active shooter, run, hide, fight. And then we're going to talk about how to respond when this changes to something totally different. Okay, we're going into a whole different mindset, okay, after lunch. Yes, sir?
Would you mind walking us through how you handled that yesterday on conditional threats?
All right, yes. Yes, so actually, our men's program director dismissed a guy for violent threats, okay? He never laid a hand on anybody, but he violated our handbook 3 times by threatening somebody in the program, getting 2 other guys ramped up in the program, causing them to want to fight, and they both got dismissed. So he told he was dismissed, calls his sister to come get him. His sister shows up. His sister is violent, okay? So I'm sitting in my office, and I just hear a bunch of screaming in the lobby. Dorm supervisor comes in there and says, the men's program director had already left for the day. I was there late. So the the dorm supervisor said, I need your help up front right now. And my first question was, where's the men's director? I'm always going to let that level in between, you know. I'm like, look, man, I'm the COO. I'm in the computer here. I ain't got time. I ain't got time to deal with that. But so there was nobody left but me, right? So I go up there, walk in there, and which is, ironically, it probably should have been me anyway, because remember I told you your most experienced de-escalation person should be there. So I walk out there, introduce myself. She's swinging her arms, speaking in tongues, running around the lobby, and he's arguing with the guys up front. And I was like, okay, everybody just take a deep breath. I introduced myself, and I said, why don't you two come to my office and sit down, let's talk like adults. And so they came back there. I talked like an adult. They did not talk like adults in the beginning. So I tried to explain. I called the men's director and said, all right, I need the details. They're in my office, and they're being aggressive. I need the details on why he was dismissed. He gave me the details. Is that a confirm? I mean, do you stand by your decision? Yes, there's no option. And I said, okay. And so she looks at me and she goes, well, you're the COO, can't you overturn his decision? And I said, I will not overturn his decision because it's based on rules and guidelines that he signed when he came in the program. I said, I need you as his sister to understand that he's violated 3 times the same rule on verbal threats. I can't let him stay here and threaten my 79 other men in this program. I said, it's not fair to them. And she goes, well, he's just not violent. And I said, he may not be, but he's acting like he is, right? I said, yes, you're right. He hasn't touched anybody. And I looked at him and I said, Edward, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. And I said, you need to be honest with her and tell her what you're doing. And so he said, he looked at her and he said, the man's right. He said, I do have some problems. And then he broke down, he got emotional, and he said, look, the man's asked me to get off his property. I just need to get off his property. We just need to go get my stuff and go. But it took, I kind of gave you the summary, but it took me an hour to get there to get him to understand that he had violated the handbook. But the whole time, I'm affirming, I'm reassuring, I've loved on him. I mean, because I do. His guy was a green lanyard with us. He'd been there 6 months, and I've seen him many times, talked to him. He's done great at his employment readiness site. But so I just kept supporting him and treating him like a human the whole time. I'm trying to get his sister to understand why he's being dismissed, right? And she finally agreed. She understand that we had to have rules, and it was for everybody's safety. And she was like, I just don't, if you put him out, he's going to die on the street. And I said, no, he doesn't have to die on the street. I said, we've given him tools here in 6 months to help him have a better life already. And I said, if he's living with you, then he could be your responsibility. We went through the whole thing. Y'all been there. I mean, some of you have been there. But it got to the point, Pastor Mark, to where he finally understood that he was in the wrong. And I got him there by love and support and saying, look, you signed the book and you just can't stay. And that's all it took, And then I called the men's program director and said, all right, I got it handled. Don't do that to me no more. But no, it worked out. And he's going to come back in 30 days. And I told him, I said, in 30 days, take this 30 days to work on your attitude. Okay? Yes, sir.
How do you deal with an arrogant road tide fan? I'm out from Alabama, and when I got here, I heard that you can't deal with it.
Pastor Bill, I'm an Auburn fan. All my boys went to Auburn. And my best friend is an Alabama fan, so I gave up on that years ago. I avoid the subject. Just calm down. That's right. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make one comment, because this is something I have to deal with a lot. But one thing that stuck in my mind when it came to de-escalation is their anger is not towards you. So regardless
Yeah,
of
that's
the
right.
person that they're screaming at or getting aggressive with, they're
Yep.
going to say the same thing to him. So in order for me personally not to take it personal is to realize it has nothing to do with it. And that's how I keep myself from, going ham sandwich back. Because a lot of us, we're that person.
Yeah.
We have that tendency to be
Yeah.
get to their level in a bad way, but I have to keep telling myself what they're saying has nothing to do with me.
That's right. CPI puts it this way. Whether or not you think their feelings are justified, it's their feelings. And keep that in mind, that to be empathetic and non-judgmental. That's exactly right. Yeah. So thank y'all very much for your undivided attention. I guess we have lunch, right? So.